Today I'll be installing the ProPlate security device on the van. Today I'm going to be fitting the ProPlate security plate to the van. This plate goes underneath the handle on the outside, and it basically stops the jimming attack where you can put a screwdriver through the bodywork here right under the handle and then literally just pop the lock and open the door. This actually is an attack that works even if you've got deadlocks. Inside the door we have this security steel plate that bolts on that basically stops the screwdriver getting up and unlocking the van. We do have other physical and electronic reactive and passive security on the van, which I'm not going to go into detail, but this one's visible from the outside and should hopefully be a deterrent and make any scrotes move on to the next van. Some instructions, and I'll try and go through the real world of these. And number one is to remove 4 T30 screws on here. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4 T30, nice and easy. So step one was very easy. Step two is to remove this plate here, and the instructions say to prise at the back here, but what I've found is actually clips on the side. So once you've got a trim tool in the edge, if you come around the sides you'll get a click out of here and a click out of here, and then the thing will jump up. Unfortunately there's a clip here that's vanished into the inside, which we'll hopefully recover later. Got a couple of wiring looms, and these we just disconnect. So that's removed. There's another T30 screw here, and then we need to remove the speaker grill, which is just clipped on. So again, just trim tools to prise that off. And there's 3 speaker screws, 1, 2, 3, and you undo those, and then unclip the speaker and take the speaker off. Okay, my speaker had another type of Torx screw, and it had some sticky stuff on the back, so it's actually difficult to pull it out. So it just, after those 3 screws removed, it was a bit of a tight squeeze. And this socket and the wiring, basically got to pinch the end in to get it out. But I did, and it was still really stiff, so I think that's just a real pain to pull out. So just be careful. Yeah, the next job is to remove these 2 screws underneath the handle. Got to prise this corner section out. The instructions say this is tight, so fingers crossed. So once it's off, you can access the T30 screw behind to remove it, where that screw comes out with a washer as well. The next job is just to get a little screwdriver in and peel off the trim behind the handle. I'm guessing the next step is to remove those 2 bolts. So those 2 bolts are out in the handle, and the next job is to basically prise this off. All the screws are out, so it's just a case of putting off a trim kit and then disconnecting the cables on the handle. The instructions on this basically say, you can see they're 14 and 15. Unclick the black and then undo 90-degree end fitting from green. No idea what that looks like until we get it off, but hopefully I'll show you better once it's off. After loads of mucking around, I can't get the green clip out of the door handle. It seems obvious how it's supposed to be done. You either push the wire up from the bottom or just squeeze and unclip. But yeah, it just doesn't feel right to do, and it's quite sensitive now. What I don't want to do is to break it. But I think as we're actually clear of everything else, we can actually carry on and just leave this dangling. Not ideal, but we'll give that a go. But I was just to remove the door panel, which is just going to be clipped in with probably some fir tree type clips. So I'll use one of the tools. Here's a door card off. I actually only found 2 clips. One is on the right hand side of the door, and the other one's at the top. And if you look, the clips will actually pop out. So I managed to sort of just twist the door so it's in like this. Twist the door slightly like that and lift it up, and that one pops out. You can still see it there. And then, twigging how they're made, this one I could just slide and wiggle the door, and you can see it coming off. So there's actually not much prizing required. Now you know where the 2 clips are. We're left with the door panel, so we now need to cut out a nice hole here so we can access the locking mechanism. So I've cut away the door cover, and we now see bits inside, and there's a little bit of plastic trim on here we just need to prise off. Looking inside the door to the lock mech, there's that silver bar on the right, and that needs to be disconnected. The instructions don't make it very clear, but literally there's sort of a type of U-clip, like a pipe clip, and just with one finger and a squeeze you can actually pop it out of the U-clip, so that cable here then becomes free, as you can see there. Now there's three 10mm sockets and nuts to remove, two at the bottom, one at the top, which are going to be a challenge to get to, but we'll see what we can do. The three screws are off and the handle assembly can now come out, and now we've got to disconnect the something from somewhere. Okay, I actually gave up with this again. I'm sure this clip here just pings out and comes out through the hole here. Other pictures on the internet show this as being a black bit of plastic, but potentially the design on mine's changed. It seems to also have pinch clips underneath, but again, every time I try and do anything I feel like I'm forcing it. Anyway, then I figured you can just get the plate over the handle without actually taking it off, so I don't quite understand what the point of that was. But this is how the handle sits, and then the steel plate is inside like so, and what it means is even if you get a screwdriver under here, you then can't poke this little lever up here, which is what would be the security floor to open up the van. Now obviously that's all going to be protected inside this metal case, so it's now just a case of getting some sealant on here and reassembling it and seeing how it looks. There's the handle with some sealant or something to squeeze out. It's not done up yet. We've obviously got to get the nuts on in here, which are bloody awkward to get to, and there's three to put on. I've dropped two down the panel of the door already, so the third one I'm going to just put a bit of tape onto my socket so it stays on in any angle, and then once I've got one on I'll figure out how to get the other two at the bottom of the door. Okay, I don't know if you can see in here, this is inside the door where the unlocking bar, which is this, was clipped onto this clip. What it wasn't clear when we took it off was there's a hole in the centre of this pin. There's this hole in here in the axis where the end needs to drop in and that needs to clip in. So if I put that around there, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so you can see what I mean now. The end of that metal bar is out in that hole, and then we just need to get this clip clips over the wire there, and that will then hold it in place. So you don't just use the clips, you've got to make sure the end goes into that hole. That's the key locking mechanism, so you need to check that once you're done. I've put the electronics back on in case there's an issue, and to test this we can now sort of pretend the door's closed fully by pressing that in, and obviously we can pull the handle and it unlocks. But now we can, so we'll close it fully, so the van thinks the door's closed. Now we can lock it, and that's double deadlocked. So now obviously the handles won't work, and the unlock should, and then we'll pretend to open the door on the handle, and there we go, it opens up. So we'll just make sure the outside handle works. It does. Lock the door, the handle doesn't work, you can unlock it, and it does. So we're now happy that works properly with the key. So we're now happy to sort of reassemble the rest and try it with the door closed. Okay, and there is my lock finished and the inside all put back together. Apart from this, I'm going to test the electrics next time we start the engine up, but should be okay. Right, this took me quite a few hours, but I actually reckon it's an hour and a half's job if you learn from my mistakes and things I could do better. Firstly, make sure your profile which they give you for the outside actually matches the door. Mine wasn't correct here and I had to take it off, redo it and bend it. Number 2, when you reconnect your bar inside the lock here, make sure the end of the pole, which is on a 90, goes into the axis, and then you clip the circlip around the pole. When the first time I did this, I didn't put it in the hole, and then I had to take everything apart. So check your locks and check everything before you reassemble. This top cap here doesn't need to come off, you just need to open it up to get it in. The instructions say to disconnect the cable inside here on the back and on the outside of the handle here. You don't actually need to do either of those, so you can save yourself a lot of bother and in googling trying to work out how to do that when it fails. When you do the 3 nuts for the lock from the inside, just make sure you don't drop the nuts down into the door. I've still lost one, I've got no idea where it went, but fortunately I had some spares. And when you put it back in, just put a bit of tape around the nut to hold it on as you push it in, like I've sort of still got at the end of my socket. Make sure you've got a very thin extension bar for your 10mm socket, otherwise you don't get it in. And the speaker, the wire actually comes to the speaker from the front, not the back. So you actually have to, when you put the door back on, you have to route the cable. There's a little hole here around the front to put it on, otherwise it gets trapped behind. The rest of the panels actually came off okay, and hopefully you'll see how that was done in the earlier in the video. But there's no damage made, just a plastic scratch there, sadly. But actually less bother than I thought. But I've had the door off probably 3 times to try and fix various glitches I've just talked you through. Probably an hour and a half if you do it right first time. So what do I think about it? The plate is actually well made, as in the size and the cutout. The angle here was poor, so that would need doing, or at least checking. And the paint job on the metal, so obviously we've got the black powder coat, was a bit crap. You can see here there's a mark, that was them, and it could have been a bit better. The inside, the lock mechanism to protect the screwdriver is actually quite sturdy and quite well made, and the whole concept of it, you can see why it would be an easy to break into without it. So absolutely well worth it in my opinion. The instructions could be clearer on how to take the clips off and how to reassemble, but as I said, you don't really need to do it. A second person might help to hold the door, or you can balance it on something. So is it worth it? Hopefully it will be fine, and hopefully nobody will nick it. Hope that's useful. Cheers. Bye.